got to be a little disappointed with the season. An improvement in the record from the previous 2 seasons, but again, just missed the playoffs because of kind of a late season swoon. What do you do to try to correct that?
Well, that's what we're going to have to look at in the offseason here. Obviously, we just finished the last game yesterday, so the information is collected over the year, but then it's reflected upon when all 76 games have played. So it's more of a frustration for us than a disappointment, because I do think we were in a stronger position last year, with the 7th seed a few weeks ago, and for whatever reason we weren't able to stay in that position, and that's what we have to look at. But it was frustrating, the number of shootout losses that we had, the 1-goal games, and the games we weren't able to score in key situations, and that's something we're going to have to take a look at.
So is it safe to say finding some scoring, whether it be just working with the players you have, or maybe finding some others, the scoring is one of the priorities over the summer?
I think it's certainly one of the things that we can solve internally with this group. I don't think that there was a lack of scoring due to the personnel. I think it was probably, I think the first thing you have to look is the power play. We have to find ways to improve the power play, and that's one area that you can look at, and power play is just a few points better. That's going to win you a few more games because of all the 1-goal close games we were in, and maybe some of those games we lost in the shootout don't get there. So for us, I think that's one area. But yes, I think it can be solved internally, and we have to figure out which ways to improve upon that.
It's obviously still it's a developmental league, and you look at some of the younger guys playing in their first year, and a lot of the guys, especially on the defensive end, were young and really started to mature a little bit. A guy like Corbin McPherson, guys like a Roman Roborenka playing in their first year really started showing strides as the season went along.
Yeah, there's no question when we look at this collectively, individually, there's going to be some things we're going to feel good about. And, for us, any of the young players that we brought in, the first-year players, the players at the end of the season, we thought were exposed to some valuable time and put in some good minutes with us and experienced some good play. So there are definitely some areas that we're going to feel good about when we look back at this individually.
Got a handful of unrestricted free agents, and I know you always try to bring some guys in. Is there any thought yet as to, is the number right now as far as how many you try to, kind of older guys you bring in? Have you thought much about who you might want to keep? And
when you say the number, what?
Well, just, I mean, I don't know what that number is. Usually 4 or 5 or 6 you have guys who've been, who are in their upper 20s. They're not that they're not prospects, but they're kind of depth guys.
Sure. Well, the league regulates how many veterans you're able to play.
Right.
So that's part of the formula that you have to work with. Right now it would be difficult to say because we don't have enough information. We're not looking towards next year right now. We're still reflecting upon this year. And obviously the New Jersey roster dictates some of the areas that you might look into as far as those types of players you're talking about and who. So we're not at that point yet to really formulate a plan. It's going to take a little more time, and the number here is, we've been pretty close to the number as far as allowable veterans. We've been beneath it as well. I don't think there's a perfect fit. I think it's really the mix that you have, and then you figure out what needs you have, and if it's older players, depth players you need to get under contract, you do. If it's not, and the young core you feel good with, then that's what you stay with. But every year I think it's a little bit of a moving target in this league. You see the turnover. Hopefully there's going to be some graduation, some players here that are going to be playing with the big team next year, and that'll be determined down the road.
I know it's too early to talk about whether you want to bring this particular player back or that particular player back, but just looking at this season, veteran D like Jay Leach, 12th-year guy, did you see an impact that he had made on some of your younger players, some of that young D core?
Well, I think any of the players that have experience, Jay being one of them, certainly provide influence, and through their experiences, being a young player at one point in their career, and certainly the experiences that they've had over the last 10 years of playing, do provide influence and valuable influence. So you see it. I do think that it's an important part of the process, and again, it depends upon the mix of players that you have here and how you put this all together. It's got to be the right mix. As they mentioned in sports, chemistry is a big part of team success, and then certainly individual success. Certain players thrive in certain roles on certain teams, and that's the formula that you try and work with every year and try and get to.
Something we had this year that they hadn't had in years past, that was a goaltending coach here, season long, in Dave Caruso. What did you think his impact was with especially guys like Keith and Scott Wedgwood and Maxime Claremont and their performances this year?
Well, I think it was important. I think we've been very spoiled to have two goaltending coaches in the organization with Jacques Caron and Chris Terreri. Chris Terreri was here for a number of years in a full-time capacity, and when Jacques Caron decided that he wanted to take a lesser role, we went without a full-time coach for a couple of years. We made the decision last off-season that we wanted to have a full-time goaltending coach back here with Albany, and to work with our other goaltenders that weren't in Albany, whether they were in Trenton or Elmira. So for us, it was an important decision. We made it. Jacques Caron still does some things, still has some correspondence with the players and certainly the team, but having a everyday presence was important, and certainly glad to have Dave and a former Devil. We thought it was going to be a quick transition.
Were you okay with how you handled your ECHL players this year? Just will that continue? Would you look to try to get a full-time tenant?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we were obviously spoiled to have our own team for all those years. We were happy with both relationships we had, both with Elmira, Trenton, and then we had a minor relationship with Kalamazoo. Unfortunately, there's less teams in the ECHL than there are in the American League, so you're not always going to have one affiliate with one particular team. Whether we have a specific affiliation with one team or working relationships like we did this year, we'll see. As you know, it was a unique year in September and October with the NHL not playing. There was a lot of jobs that were precious.
Did that affect the number of people you keep in the organization, not having your own team?
No.
You're able to use your numbers or similar as far as
Yeah, I think this year again was different because of what the NHL lockout, the impact it had on this level and certainly the ECHL level. So there was no question the beginning of the year we had more players here than we normally would have.
Right.
But you deal with that. Everybody else had to deal with that, and hopefully we won't have to deal with it again. But it didn't affect assignments after that happened, or that we got through the lockout.